What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, we had a massive blowout of Xbox Series X information, all about the system features and even a look inside at the hardware powering the system. Did a video kind of going over that as they pretty much just showed us all of the components inside. So if you missed that video and you're curious about how the thing goes together, go check that one out. Today, though, we're going to go over some of the features, the specs that they revealed, and a few other little things as well. Also, Animal Crossing, the reviews are out for Animal Crossing, and it might end up being one of the best reviewed games of the year, also one of the best selling ones. It looks like it's going to be kind of the year of Animal Crossing going forward here. As always, guys, if you enjoyed these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if you're brand new here, hit that red subscribe button down below as we head towards 400,000 subscribers. We're just under 500 away now, so exciting stuff there. And we're actually going to start today with something else to look forward to later on this week. Of course, we have Animal Crossing and Doom dropping on Friday, but what about the day before when Resident Evil 3 will be getting a demo? Much like we got a demo with Resident Evil 2, that remake, we'll be getting one with Resident Evil 3 on March 19th. Now, following up on the 27th, we will also be getting an open beta for Project Resistance, which is kind of like the 4v1 co-op style game that's going to be online. They will be doing an open beta, I assume, to just stress test it and make sure everything works, of course, ahead of release. But the demo coming out, PS4, Xbox One, and PC, all dropping at the same time, and it sounds like it's going to be pretty cool. You get to play as Jill going through what sounds like just part of the game, almost like the opening sort of is what they're describing. They said they didn't want to ruin too much of it for us, and that's fine. We'll be all, I'm sure, checking out the demo as we're counting down the time to either Doom or Animal Crossing anyway the following day, and they're also hiding some statues and some collectibles even in the demo. They say they have like 20 of them hiding in there, and when you do beat the demo, there is an exclusive cinematic or some sort of trailer that kind of is at the end of it. I'm sure that'll find its way to YouTube as well, but it's fun to have these little things tied into the demo as well, and I'm sure everyone's looking forward to Resident Evil 3 next month, so the demo at least will kind of tide us over. Also, I've told you guys several times that I'm a big fan of Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight. It's on the PC in the late 90s. It was an awesome game. Absolutely loved it. Well, Limited Run Games is going to be doing a limited run on it. Looks like about 1,500 copies of a collector's edition, and it's going to be limited to 2 per customer, so don't worry, it's not going to be like one person buys 20 of them, but it is limited run, so they do sell out pretty quick. But check this out. They put the page up. It's coming on the 20th, so in 3 days, you'll be able to put a pre-order in for this, I guess, and then get it when they'll send it to you later on. But it's going for $65, and it looks awesome. They put out a kind of an image showing off all the different things in there. They will have, of course, a physical copy of Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2 on a disc for your PC, which is amazing. Steelbook case, all kinds of stuff, along with a large poster, Lucasfilm USB drive, commemorative coin, a dueling lightsabers enamel pin. It just looks like an awesome collection for someone like me who remembers this game very, very fondly. Absolutely love this. And then Mysteries of the Sith came out a little later on to kind of continue it. It was really the big jumpstart, I would say, to these Jedi Knight style games that come out, kind of the action lightsaber style games. Yeah, this is, to me, where it really started and really jumped off. Definitely worth checking out. The visuals have not aged very well. I would like to see someone out there, EA, somebody, go back and remake this game because it was a really good story, I think really fun and worth going back to. Also, alongside of the Xbox Series X, we got some information about the controller. There were only like 1 or 2 little things in there that were really that. I mean, if you look at the controller, it looks so similar to the Xbox One controller. Now, the D-pad is different. That was one of the big focal points that they wanted to focus on. Several images were also available on their website, but the D-pad, according to them, is a lot better than the current Xbox One D-pad. You can see it's kind of raised on the different directions, so apparently it's easier to find, like up, left, down, and actually press it correctly and not mispress or any of that, or they say it feels just overall better, more similar to their Series X. They say it's kind of like a 1X mixed with the 1, and it sounds like something we're going to have to try ourselves, but they did say that the latency is also down through something they've been working on to have the controller interact a bit faster, it seems. They went through it. Again, something they say is going to be invisible to us, but it will make the input latency lower, which is good. And then they do say it will also connect through Bluetooth to your phone phone and PC and everything, and it will even remember those different devices, which is great because I'm sure they want to use this controller for things like xCloud through your phone and PC as well. One downside, I think, though, is that it still uses AA's. Why? It's like we're so far removed from that. The other companies have moved on from AA's. I guess at least this controller will be using USB-C, but really just instead of AA's, just have a battery pack in there like what the Pro controller for the Switch does, or just straight up seal it like the PS4 controller, and you just plug it in and charge it. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're gonna start with the Xbox Series X right away. Massive blowout of information. Seriously, there's a lot of stuff to look at here, a lot of reading to go over. There were some great videos done by Austin Evans and Digital Foundry going over their trip to Redmond to take a look at the Series X in person. They saw several games. My only concern about the games is they didn't show anything. I wish they had something, right? Like something really cool to show that's a Series X game that's really focused towards it. Like if the new Forza was done, I thought that would have been a really good game to show off, but they mostly showed them Xbox One and Xbox 360 games, and like Minecraft was the big focus to show off ray tracing, which, all right, sure, why not? But let's take a look at the specs. They did put out the sheet on their website. You can see it here. And starting from the top, we have 8 cores. As we heard before, they do have multi-threading, so it can be 16 threads, but at 8 cores, it goes to 3.8 gigahertz. That's not a boost clock, by the way. That's sustained, which is ridiculous. But if you drop it down to 16 threads, and you have to drop the frequency down to 3.6 gigahertz if you want to use 16 threads, and that is, of course, running on the Zen 2 CPU. Phil Spencer's already mentioned that. It's going to be at 12 teraflops, 52 CUs, and the compute units actually come out at 56, but they will be able to disable 4. That way they get a higher yield out of any of the manufacturing that they do, and that is at 1.825 gigahertz on the RDNA 2 architecture from AMD. Now the RAM's an interesting one. It's using 16 gigabytes of GDDR6, and they are splitting it up. So they have faster memory at 10 gigabytes, 560 gigabytes per second, and they have 6 gigabytes at 336 gigabytes per second. That would pretty much point towards the 10 gigabytes being used for games, of course, whereas the 6 gigabytes would be maybe kind of cut up for things like audio or OS and others. It's definitely pulled more or less for cost, I would say. If the whole thing was that really fast, like the faster speed, it would be more expensive, and you don't really need that for things like system level tasks or any of that. And then the big thing here that we're going to come back to in the next section, because it does have to do with even the external storage, is the 1 terabyte custom NVMe SSD, which will make things significantly faster. Seriously, they showed State of Decay 2 loading 4 to 5 times faster. It was pretty ridiculous. And the IO throughput is 2.4 gigabytes per second raw. And they have kind of this compression setup for a custom hardware block at 4.8 gigabytes per second. It's going to be much, much faster than the terribly slow mechanical hard drive that is inside of these Xbox Ones and these Xbox One X systems, and they are targeting 4K at 60 frames per second with a roof of 120 frames per second. Now, all of that sounds great because it's going to be extremely powerful. In fact, after they did the math, it was like 12.1 teraflops. It's like RTX 2080 territory, and what we think might be $500. I'm starting to think this is going to be a $600 system. Seriously, everything they're saying here sounds amazing, really. And when you get to that point, you're like, man, everything really sounds good. Eventually, we got to get to that cost. And that's the big hurdle here. At $600, I don't know if it's going to be a tough sell for like me or other enthusiasts, but for the general public, it might be kind of tough. Hopefully Lockhart is coming at some point, and it's like half the price of that at like $250 or $300. But looking at this system here, they did show it off in action, and there was one really cool thing that I saw outside of them showing off ray tracing, which was cool because AMD has not shown that themselves. This is Microsoft showing off AMD's own technology, it seems, like using their DirectX protocol of that. But they were showing it off for the first time. It was Microsoft with Minecraft, and sure, it's kind of their ray trace. We've seen ray tracing with NVIDIA, and we kind of know what to expect seeing that with Minecraft, but it was pretty neat to see it running on an Xbox Series X, as we saw Digital Foundry and Austin Evans kind of showcasing it there on the system. It was pretty cool to see that, right? See, you can kind of see the possibilities as to what can happen as we go forward. That's kind of why I was hoping they would have had a Series X game, something we can look forward to. Like, can you imagine what Forza would look like with ray tracing enabled through AMD and RDNA 2? That would be something special to see, and we will eventually see something like that. But then they jumped over to the quick resume feature, and wow, this looks pretty cool. Now, there were some questions around this, specifically how many games can you store, because it seems to vary between, is it a Series X game, is it an Xbox One game, is it a 360 game, is it an original Xbox game, because it goes, of course, all the way back to the first generation Xbox games, but essentially, you just jump between games and it will store where you were in the game. So if you switch, as they showed, from Forza to Ori or to State of Decay, it will remember it and it'll jump you over in seconds. Yeah, that sounds exceptionally useful. Like, if you can go between games that quickly and not lose your place, the startup time with something for the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4 is frustrating at times. It can take a while. They showed State of Decay taking like up to a minute or whatnot, just loading up. Yeah, a lot of times you just sit there just like kind of hanging out, looking at your phone, or like it takes a while. That's why the Switch was so cool to see it, that you jump right in it. The load up is quick, jumping into games is quick. I like seeing this transition from what was a very slow OS with the Xbox One to a much faster setup with the Series X. But I have to say, so far, I'm really happy with what I'm seeing with the Series X. I'm super confused what Sony's doing right now, because all we seem to do is talk about Microsoft and their next Xbox. We don't really say anything about the PS5 outside of its logo. So like, I hope Sony is doing something and they're getting ready to at least show it through a digital event. They could even do something like this. They could put out another press release and it would get people talking again, but like, we know so much about the Series X and like nothing about the PlayStation 5, so maybe Sony has something really, really cool up their sleeves to show us, or maybe they really are struggling in the background like we've heard from places like Bloomberg through reports. Hard to say, but right now it's like all eyes on the Series X and it's looking pretty good. Next up, we're going to stick with the Series X, as there was another part of this showcase that I wanted to specifically talk about, because it looks like Microsoft is bringing back memory cards? Kind of. I mean, we deal with memory cards now with our portable devices, or like the Switch, or you use USB sticks and things like the PS4 and the Xbox One, or just straight up hard drives. But these things look interesting. We saw several images of it. Microsoft put some out as well. It looks like they're partnering with Seagate to create their own external storage SSD, NVMe style devices. They're kind of small, but according to the people who were there who were checking out, had some weight to it, but they plug in the back and it is a 1 terabyte SSD drive, essentially just kind of pared down and a bit smaller. And according to Microsoft, it will retain the same speeds that you get from the internal 1 terabyte NVMe drive. And they did give the same reason. I just want everyone to realize this. They're giving the same reason that Sony gave back with the Vita why they were using proprietary memory cards, which is that they expect a certain amount of speed from their storage medium. So you have to use this card if you want to expand your storage for things that you're going to play off of it. As in, you can still use a mechanical drive, but you're not going to play Series X games off of it. You'll have to use that for storage and then load from there onto your SSD. You can play Xbox One games off of there, however, or 360, but you will, of course, be at the mercy of that slow hard drive running through USB 3.2. But if you use that SSD, the external storage that you expand your memory from, you'll get the same speeds, and that's good, except we need to know the pricing of that as well. I keep saying everything sounds really cool, but what's it gonna cost, right? Like a 1 terabyte SSD that's like tiny, like size of a little square, yeah, that I think, all right, I'll throw a price out there. I think that's gonna be like $150, all right? Now look, back in the day, when the 360 came out, Microsoft was charging us $100 for a 20 gigabyte hard drive. So this isn't like new to them necessarily, but it at least gives us an option, as everyone's kind of moving to SSDs now away from mechanical drives. How would we kind of figure out an external storage solution? And that's it. It just isn't going to be very cheap. Next up, let's talk about Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing New Horizons had its embargo lift on reviews yesterday morning, and wow, it did pretty well. It came out the gate at like a 92 on Metacritic, dropped to a 91 as of this recording, with about 48 critic reviews in. Now, there are some that are still kind of pending because they want to try the online multiplayer out, and maybe they're either working through it now with some friends, or they're just waiting for launch day to see how it all works exactly. Maybe you make some friends on there, or you want to do some random stuff and kind of just invite people in and see how all that goes with your connection, and just maybe how the game reacts to people getting on your island online. But at least for now, we have a good idea at this game being at a 91 on Metacritic, and everyone just seemed to enjoy it. Like, it has all positive reviews right now, and it sounds like it is like the definitive Animal Crossing game, which is exciting for me, because the last time I really got into an Animal Crossing was like 17 years ago on the GameCube, right? So to see what is now the highest rated Animal Crossing ever. I mean, it beat out New Leaf. New Leaf was what, like an 88 or an 89? The fact that this is in the low 90s is a big deal, because it very well could get to the end of the year and it be one of the, I don't know, 5 or 6 games that are above a 90, as long as it holds here at 91. And that it's going to be looked at as one of the highest rated games of the year. And on top of that, Animal Crossing is going to sell pretty well. I estimate 16, 17 million in the first like 4 or 5 months. It's going to get out of control. And because this falls into the end of Nintendo's fiscal year, we'll know how well it sells in its first 10 days. Maybe they'll even tell us before they have to release their reports midway through the year. But to see Animal Crossing do so well in 2020 is exciting for me. I'm going to be checking it out on Friday, but a 91 on Metacritic sounds like it's just a high quality game. And pretty much anyone who's new to the series might be the game to check out. And in our last bit of news, let's quickly talk about the indie presentation that's going to be happening in a couple of hours from when this video goes up. For me, it's going to be 1 p.m. Eastern time, and we can actually see the tweet here. It says, tune in tomorrow, March 17th, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, for a new Indie World Showcase live stream featuring roughly 20 minutes of info on indie games coming to the Nintendo Switch. That's Indie World. We have the slide down there, and look, I know everyone wants a general Nintendo Direct to hear about first-party Nintendo games, but we've seen how important indies are to Nintendo. They've done very well for them, and these indie presentations are great for smaller developers, and we still see some really cool stuff. Remember, Cuphead, Cadence of Hyrule, those are games that have come out of these indie world-style games. Undertale, I mean, the list goes on, right? So to see a 20-minute presentation is exciting. So what could we see here? Well, obviously some shadow drops, so we'll probably have a couple of games come out today, which is really, really good to just see some stuff drop. So I'm torn a little bit on that. I kind of want Sports Story to just get dropped, but at the same time, in a few days, we'll be playing Doom and Animal Crossing, so I'm like, oh, I don't know if that's good, because Golf Story took up quite a bit of my time, love that game, and I really want to check out Sports Story, so we'll see about that. But really, these indie presentations are just so difficult to predict, because there's so many indie games out there that they could bring in, and they always bring in some, at times, we'll say strange indie games, but they bring in some really cool ones that we've never heard of, and it's awesome to play through them. So maybe Disco Elysium, that would be a cool one to drop in here that a lot of us have heard about. That would, I think, fit pretty well on the Switch, as long as they can make sure all the controls adapt to the system and all of that. And what I would really like to see is Nintendo continue this thing they did with Cadence of Hyrule, where they found an indie developer they really liked and allowed them to kind of work alongside of them with one of their first-party IPs, that being Zelda. I don't know, play around with something and put out an IP there for an indie developer to get a hold of and work with. That would be really cool, because Cadence of Hyrule was great, tons of creativity there, and it was because Nintendo some of the executives there liked the game, right? Crypt the Necrodancer, and they said, hey, let's go get him and let him use Zelda. So, go do something like that with any of your other IPs that maybe haven't been used recently, and that could be really neat to see pop up. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Crystal Kite saying, when a Nintendo Direct does happen, I would want Metal Gear Solid announced. Okay, so that rumor that's going around right now about a Metal Gear, about Metal Gear and Silent Hills and all this stuff, the reason I want at least that to be somewhat correct is because I want Konami to wake up and start producing high quality games, or just licensing stuff out there. And hearing about the idea of even just the Metal Gear Solid collection going to the Switch, having a studio port that over, that would be really, really cool to see, right? It's a little thing too. Or even do something with Twin Snakes. Seriously, there are some things they could do in general with Metal Gear, and they've kind of forgotten about it, left it to the side. We get Metal Gear Survive. Ugh, who cares? They could have done so much more. And I almost feel like if they are working with Sony right now, maybe they're starting to wake up to the idea of doing games again, things other than the Contra game that came out recently. Good games. Maybe if they can figure out how Silent Hills can come back and how Kojima can once again work with Konami through Sony, that's exciting just for us gamers. I think that's why we want it to be real, is because I think a lot of us like Konami for what they were, not what they've become, and we want them to be the old Konami again. So that's why so many of us want to believe that rumor, but who knows? We'll see. I mean, hey, we can keep an eye out for some sort of direct maybe that happens in a week and a half or so, and at that point, hey, maybe Metal Gear will be there. That would be cool as the collection coming over, but we'll see. And ladies and gentlemen, let's go do here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is the Xbox Series X, all of the information we're getting recently. What do you think about this system? Is it a day one pickup, or are you concerned about that pricing now that we're hearing some pretty ridiculous specs? Let's be real here. I mean, this thing sounds like a beast, but a lot of times there's some cost that comes with that beast. Also, what do you think about Animal Crossing getting a 91 currently on Metacritic? As that's the best rated Animal Crossing so far, right? And then what do you want to see in his Indie World Direct later on today? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.